Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC from this, the greatest nation on the face of the earth. And it is great because in this country, it is supposed to be unusual for an individual to use his power, for an individual to use his legally brokered force to do things that are against the interest of the people he represents. Even though it may be legal for, let's say, a governor of a state to pardon an individual who is a deeply disturbed criminal, it is expected by his constituents and by the common American people he will not use this power to do so, because that would be, first of all, a very scummy thing to do. Number two, because in a just society, something like that would get you run out of town on a rail and worse. And unfortunately, there is an entire class of individuals in this country now who believes that it is appropriate in a manner to stick it to Donald Trump, to somehow suggest that ICE is a worse fate. Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, who sits on the Minnesota Board of Pardons, voted, and they unanimously granted the pardon, which means that Tim Walz cast his vote in favor of pardoning a sexual abuser. Please do not take my word for it. Here would be the front page of the New York Times article right there. Minnesota, directly and clearly pardoning a sexual abuser who was set to be deported. This individual, Tou Lue Vang, has reportedly, quote, expressed regret for abusing a 10-year-old 2 decades ago. Now, the Trump administration has since accused Governor Tim Walz, a Democrat, of shielding the immigrant who committed a serious crime. Now, why would you say that the Trump administration is shielding this guy? What a piece of work. The guys in prison should have got to him with some ground glass years ago. You should have never made it this far. You abuse a 10-year-old, there should be no possible prison sentence. Again, things that common Americans understand. But for Tim Walz, why pardon him now? After all, I'm sure he's been expressing regret, for these last 20 years. So why all of a sudden let him go? Well, he was just 2 days away from Immigration Customs Enforcement releasing him back to the authorities in Thailand, who, according to some of the records that we have from the Thailand government, might have hanged him as soon as he arrived. Which, again, you're not a citizen of this country. You're not supposed to be here. You abuse a child. If Thailand promises as soon as they get a hold of you to give you the rope, I'm not going to lose too much sleep about it. But apparently, Governor Tim Walz did. He was immediately called out. The Department of Homeland Security posted earlier today, and I quote, Governor Tim Walz and Minnesota sanctuary politicians pardoned an illegal alien who repeatedly sexually assaulted a 10-year-old. On June 10th, the Minnesota Board of Pardons voted to grant Tou Lue Vang from Laos a pardon for his 2006 convictions for sexual assault, strong-arm sodomy, and procuring a child for prostitution. This pardon came just a week, not 2 days, a week before Vang was set to be removed from our nation. Now, why would this individual do that? What's his excuse? And I quote, during his interviews with police, Vang tried to justify his actions by saying, quote, it is a cultural thing to marry and have sex with girls as young as 12, end quote. Well, first of all, the child was 10, not that that would have made it remotely better. There are cultures that are by themselves, regardless of the color of your skin, regardless of how much hair you have, regardless of your gender, regardless of whatever. There are some cultures that people choose to participate in that are incompatible with our own. As the Department of Homeland Security continues here, Governor Walz pardon shielded this child rapist, accurate, from removal from our nation. And also, again, granted him a pardon. So he's wandering around free at the present time. This is the type of disgusting criminal sanctuary politicians are, this is the type of disgusting criminal that sanctuary politicians are shamelessly protecting. And this isn't the first time. Governor Tim Walz did a little something like this recently with a violent murderer and an armed robber. This is a consistent pattern with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Now, Representative Wes Hunt, former candidate for senator from the state of Texas. He's currently a representative in the House of Representatives from Texas. He has a kind of a different statement regarding the 7,000 individuals that Immigration Customs Enforcement had put out detainers for in the state of New York who had committed crimes, who were credibly accused of committing crimes and were sitting in jail. Immigration Customs Enforcement said, hey, these guys are illegals. They shouldn't be here. Please turn them over to us so that we can begin processing them for removal. We covered this earlier this year that New York State Governor Kathy Hochul, Zohran Mamdani encouraged this as well, chose to release them from prison, release them from jail. 7,000 accused of committing violent crimes. Here's Representative Wes Hunt, again, on this pattern today.
I've heard 15, I've heard 20. I don't give a damn how many it is. It's one too many. Entering the United States illegally does not create a right to remain here indefinitely. For whatever reason, this is a political football. It's very cut and dry. This is very simple to someone like me. In just 10 months, New York released nearly 7,000 aliens subject to ICE detainers. We are talking about crimes that include 29 murders, 2,500 assaults, 200 burglaries, 300 robberies, and hundreds of sexual assaults. And we are allowing these criminals and these animals back into our midst. Government's first responsibility is to protect our citizens. Anything less than that is a derelict of duty and a failure of leadership. And in this case, the intentional failure of leadership.
The intentional failure being that they chose to do this. This was not as though they couldn't have known. For example, one could make the case that with Gavin Newsom or with Karen Bass, that it was an unintentional failure to allow the Palisades fires to get as large as they did. You could make that case. I don't know if it'd be a really good case, but you could make that case. However, in the situation where we're looking at Governor Tim Walz or the state officials in New York, like Governor Kathy Hochul's office or her attorney general, choosing, like Attorney General Letitia James, in case you had forgotten, Captain Mortgage Fraud, that when they choose to release criminals back into the streets, that is an intentional dereliction of duty. That is choosing to leave the door unlocked. That is choosing to release those who have already proven their willingness to steal, to rape, to pillage, to burn, to murder, back out onto the streets.
Done by political purposes.
And it really is all about political purposes. There is a bizarre idea right now that you'd have to get back at Donald Trump because maybe he has Teddy Rooseveltian antiquated ideas of American citizenship or American heritage, or the kinds of ideas that built this country and the kinds of people that built this country. That when Donald Trump suggests that the immigrants that came over from 1850 through 1920 are different than the wave of immigrants that came after World War II when Lyndon B. Johnson helped to throw open the gates and eliminate any kind of quotas, cultural quotas, and suggesting that an Irish Catholic is, they're just as dangerous as a Somali Islamic individual that may have participated in their civil war and been accused of several war crimes. The Irish Catholic got to this country, and in the various areas which he and his family built a life, happened to have built something that was culturally assimilated into these United States. And the individual that has come from Somalia, as we're going to get to conversation about here in a minute, has now become the banner that many on the left are carrying by suggesting that because this is a nation that is built by immigrants, that they're all the same. And so whoever the Trump administration has a little bit of scrutiny towards, or the American public has a little bit of scrutiny towards because of prior actions in fraud, or theft, or wire fraud, or Medicare fraud, or Medicaid fraud, or housing fraud, that what you really have to do is instead completely flip it and start releasing murderers and start releasing sexual abusers and start releasing illegal aliens. And it is not only a grave insult to, obviously, the American standard that was supposed to have been set over these last 250 years. It is, of course, a grave insult to the parents of those who have lost their children. The parents of Jocelyn Nungare. Or whether we're looking at the parents of Lake and Riley, whether we're looking at the parents across this country who have lost children, the families who have lost loved ones, the families of the National Guardsmen who were attacked, again, by illegal immigrants, which are trying to pursue political terrorism aims, just so that in the state of California, you can give the man who beat to death another individual for Islamist pro-terrorist reasons, again, shouting the common Arabic phrases you've come to know and love, a year in the county jail. That's the maximum. And all of this is being done despite you. It is being done despite the United States, because the idea that you would be proud of those who built this country and assimilated and grew and built American culture that you also share pride in, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, has now become the anathema that must be campaigned against. Radio crew, we're going to send you guys off to the commercial break. Try not to do any major felonies while we're gone, because I'm not going to advocate for your pardon. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, it's not just Republicans or conservative commentators or even independents that are saying this. Stephen A. Smith, again, the sports commentator who also does a cultural and political podcast, he makes it clear that for a lot of Republicans, he doesn't have a beef with them over on his left side of the aisle, and that he's, maybe more pro-choice and he's pro-LGBT on some things. But his criticism is that if Democrats go down this road of being completely anti-American and pro-Marxist and pro-illegal and pro-Islamist, that's not going to fly.
I want to emphasize, you're a Republican, you're a member of the GOP, you're somebody that's focused on the economy, I ain't got no problems with you. You somebody that wanted our border closed because Biden left the border open, I ain't got no problem with you. As far as I'm concerned, the liberals and Democrats need to shut the hell up on that issue. When Obama deported 3.1 million people, you ain't say anything. You had networks doing features on ICE.
That is true. There are countless videos of CNN doing ride-alongs with immigration customs enforcement during the Obama administration. In the Biden administration, you had two separate features, one for the New York Times, one for MSNBC at the time, that talked to and with immigration customs enforcement, trying to suggest that Kamala Harris was doing a phenomenal job as the border czar. All of a sudden, Donald Trump shows up in his second term and he's going to start enforcing the law. And all of a sudden, it's anathema. They're terrorists that are attacking the country. That kind of nonsense.
Suddenly, they the bad guys.
There you
They're
go.
the scourges of the earth. When you had deported over 3.1 million people when Obama was in office, shut the hell up. I don't want to hear from you. You're a GOP or you're a Republican and you got issues with immigration, I ain't got no problem with you. I might be pro-choice, but you pro-life, that's your prerogative. I ain't got no problem with you.
So what he finishes this out by saying is that he doesn't like that some aspects of the Trump administration appear to be more focused on like enriching himself and, the president made a lot of money in crypto because someone else has managed. Trump's not saying they're going, yes, Bitcoin, it's time to sell and buy. Like, that's not what's happening. But anywho, Stephen's saying, well, I may not like these things in the party. Republicans right now are not really in the best position ever to walk away with midterms. They're not in a terrible place, but they're not in a great place either. Why does this matter? Why am I telling you this here and now? Because all Democrats have to do is not be bat bleep insane. All they have to do is not act evil in front of the American people, and they can't do it. They seriously cannot do it. And usually I don't openly assign motive when I'm describing these kind of incidents, but when it comes to this stuff, openly saying you're going to release all of the criminals out onto the street and you're going to nationalize, grocery stores and all of this pro-Islamist stuff, and then you're going to create statues of conservatives for people to deface. Now in Wisconsin, socialist gubernatorial candidate Francesca Hong with Hassan Piker. Again, this stuff isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's meant to be anti-American.
Now we're going to do rapid fire. Super easy, super simple. Rapid fire. Do you support repealing Act 10?
Yes.
Universal child care?
Yes.
Free school meals?
Yes.
Guaranteed pay leave?
Yes.
Abolishing ICE?
Yes.
A 1-year data center moratorium?
Yes.
Breaking up Big Ag?
Yes.
Public grocery stores?
Yes.
Right to repair?
Yes.
Legalizing cannabis?
Yes.
Overturning Citizens United?
Yes.
A workers' bill of rights?
Yes.
A free Palestine?
Yes.
Again, it's all, they're making it very clear. None of this is hidden anymore. All of the masks have come off. And now you have even more of the corporate and the technocratic side of the Democratic Party who are more than happy to bow down in whatever way they can and simply turn around and say, well, this is the way it is now. I guess I like the energy. Some representatives for the Democrats are trying to pull up. It's too late.
Open borders is not a great policy. Defunding police is stupid. Socialism to the extreme. Some of the extreme ideas that are being proposed would not be a very smart and thoughtful policy for this country. For example, I know somebody talked about releasing undocumented felons into American society. I'm never going to agree with those type of policies, and neither do I believe the majority of Democrats will agree with that.
Well, Tim Walz just did that today. How about that? Radio crew is coming back in just a second here. Radio crew, welcome back from the commercial break. So you've got a couple of Democrats on the House side. This Representative Vicente Gonzalez. He's like, he's representative of Texas. Oh, hey, I'm on your side. I'm not on the socialist side. That's not going to be enough. It is not going to be enough. Now, let's talk about something. I really don't want to get into this, but unfortunately I have to, because it is right before Independence Day of the 250th anniversary of the United States. Now, over the last year, I want you to just think for a moment, just a brief moment, how many other countries around the world have national holidays? We do. We know that Portugal, Spain, the United Kingdom, we know that France, the Netherlands, we know that the Belgians, we know that there are countless countries in Africa, Asia, Oceania, South and Central America that celebrate Independence Days quite often. Many of those countries are very friendly with the United States. Many of those countries have very sizable immigrant populations here in the United States. Some with more heritage, some with less, meaning some that have been here longer and over more generations, some that have been here for fewer. And yet what's rather interesting here and now is that of all of the countries around the world, the only one right before the 4th of July that we're getting full-on festivals for, where's the Ecuadorian independence? Where's the Colombian, the Gran Colombia Independence Day stuff? I'm looking for all of these random celebrations around the United States. The closest you've got is like one Irish parade in Boston. Who's been doing Irish parades in Boston since they got here? I mean, additionally, I mean, goodness gracious, what else, Dad? What else? It'd be like in The Fugitive, you have the Irish celebrating St. Paddy's Day. Other countries out there that are celebrating their independence in the United States. Any other examples? No. For some reason, though, right before the 4th of July, right when the Trump administration has spent a considerable amount of scrutiny, when the Trump administration has spent a considerable amount of time breaking through and picking apart the different kinds of fraud here, there, and everywhere regarding Somali and other third world migrants, just all of the sudden, gee, wow, just now it's time to go all in on Somali Independence Day festivals right before the 4th of July. That's so strange. Wow. I am shocked. And in case you wonder, well, maybe they're just very excited about this culture. This certainly isn't meant to spite Americans. I give you Representative Ilhan Omar says, quote, always a joy to celebrate Somali Independence Day on Lake Street. Contrary to right-wing trolls, it's not actually about Somali independence. It's not. Somalis are helping Minnesota thrive. And then she said, Guil iyo gubadanoya solo bibbidi boppity boo. I'm sorry, I don't speak pirate. So in this particular instance, while Ilhan Omar is dancing with her brother in Minneapolis, very, very exciting. I will say I do think it's kind of funny how Ilhan Omar is allowed to be nationalist. She's like aggressively Somalian nationalist for a country that she had to flee from. But of course, if you're proud of this country, well, then you're like an evil, awful, terrible person. And then you're probably also racist and you probably own slaves or something. So a little more onto this isn't just about Ilhan Omar dancing in the street. No. Because Minnesota and Minneapolis, we've known for a very long time, is making much ado about the fact that they are not at all an American polity in any way, shape, or form. Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, he has to get out there and talk about how important it is. Why? Because he says, well, Operation Metro Surge with immigration customs enforcement, we weathered this as a Somalian community. Kind of an interesting Freudian slip there.
Through the most difficult of times and through Operation Metro Surge, we all saw that they tried to come for some of us.
Tried to come for some of us, why? Why did they try to come for some of you? For what? What was it they tried? Maybe because you are not here legally? Maybe because you committed serious crimes? Maybe because there were oodles, canoodles, and toaster strudels worth of funds and wire fraud payments that were leaving the United States and going to Somalia? And the Medicare and the Medicaid fraud and the wire fraud and the mortgage fraud and the charity fraud and the NGO fraud and et cetera ad nauseum. It's right out in front. And again, lest you think that it'd be too on the nose, the video that's been going viral, just one poor guy, one poor Minnesota, like Twin Cities fan, one dude in a crowd of people that I guarantee you could not read a single paragraph of Shakespeare. Not a single one. Engineers, doctors, and lawyers. Every single one of them. Exciting stuff. Exciting. And of course, this is also in Columbus, Ohio, where they're getting a lot of grief because the Columbus, Ohio Parks and Rec Department made the, I'll say it, rather bizarre decision Let's get the B-roll up here. Get it all loaded. Happy Somali Independence Day, says the Columbus Parks and Rec account, as we celebrate the unification of the Trust Territory of Somaliland and the state of Somaliland into Somali Republic. They had this big old post. Now, it got taken down immediately because they had announced there was going to be this big flag-raising Somali independence ceremony. And it just so happened that it was going to come up on July the 4th. So it's right out there. Not for any other culture, any other people. No. South African people come over to the United States. There's rioting and there's threats and there's rocks being thrown. But for the Somali population, oh, it's wonderful. In Buffalo, New York, the city of Buffalo in Niagara Square raised the Somali flag up. Again, just other countries' flags flying. Now, I am told all of the time by all of like the really anti-Israel right that like AIPAC is super duper awful and terrible. And I'm not seeing the Israeli flag flying up over a bunch of city and town halls every single diggity dong day of the year. And yet here, what do we have? The again, flag of Somalia flying over the city of Buffalo. And so Mayor Sean Ryan got very mad because someone played a little capture the flag and ripped up the piece of blue cloth with the white star in the middle. The city of Buffalo's flagpole in Niagara Square sustained damage. Oh man, it's horrible. After unknown vandals broke the access panel, cut the cable, and removed the Somali flag during the overnight hours of Wednesday, July the 1st. The City of Buffalo Police Department is investigating the incident. Oh, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're investigating it as hard as when the guy drove over the pride flag that was painted onto the street. That same level of heavy police work happening here. The flag had been raised by an organization called, get ready for it, Heal International. Heal International, the Friendship, Love, and Hugs League, in honor of Somalian Independence Day. Excellent. Love it. Thrilling. So, Matt, Buffalo is a proud, diverse city. We just only celebrate one group ever. And we're committed to honoring and celebrating the many cultures. Buffalo, New York has 4 holidays. You've got Christmas, you've got Thanksgiving, you have the celebration of the Buffalo Chicken Wing, which is a very important holiday, and no one will insult it. God bless them. And then last but certainly not least, Somali Independence Day, the 4 cornerstone American holidays. Very, very impressive. Also, Boston held a little Somali flag raising at the end of June. For a group of people that say that it's not important where it is that you come from, they do a lot of nationalist flag raisings. It's rather bizarre indeed. Now, Boston officials did force a man to take down an American flag, because if there's only one culture you're not allowed to be a part of here in the United States, it's American. You're not allowed to raise the United States flag. Here was the police telling him to take down his American flag.
I don't think it's a big deal, but that's your call.
Yeah, we rented the fence, so
yeah,
we gotta take it down.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we don't apologize.
Yeah. You rented the fence?
Yeah.
Do
No, I
whatever you
understand.
want with it.
That's it.
So,
I've been in these
nice looking
situations.
flag.
Yeah, well, that's great. It doesn't do any good when it's taken down. Making me take the flag down. The city of Boston complained. Terrible, terrible.
There was a fence that a man raised the American flag down. City comes up and goes, oh, sorry, we rented this fence so that you can't like hang any American flags on like Boston public property. Boy, that'll show them. Thrilling stuff. Radio crew, we're going to send you off to the commercial break. God help me, do not fly any Somali flags while we're gone. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. We're going to continue on the live stream. Now, my producer is currently telling me that covering this kind of stuff may not be the most thrilling thing for the impressions on the algorithm. Don't care. Because there's news to cover. And this is the kind of stuff they say is very, very important. So I'm just doing my part by spreading the joy and the wonder about what is apparently far more important than, the United States, like in Birmingham, New York, canceling their Independence Day fireworks show, but also making sure they get a Somali flag raising in there. And also, isn't this better than fireworks?
Let's go, guys.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, hurrah. I mean, come on. Aren't you feeling it? This is why Washington crossed the Delaware right here. Mm-hmm. The guys raising the flag on Iwo Jima, I'm sure they were thinking, I sure hope they cancel the fireworks and they get some lady to sing the ingredients on the back of the Listerine bottle. Oh, gee. Oh, man. Oh, I just wishing upon a star. Incredible. Columbia Heights also, just all kinds of nonsense. Now, what about the 4th of July? Because don't worry, people are already finding a way to screw it up already. finding a way to screw things up in San Diego, California, which has, by the way, more military installations and active duty service members than any other city in the country. Any other city. San Diego, California. They have finally provided us their 4th of July schedule for their big events. Here you go again. The most military members and veterans in any city in the country. What's their 4th of July schedule? Well, from basically 3 to 6, set up in the sound check, and then media statements, guests' arrival and networking, tribal intimate blessing and the welcoming to the land. It's kind of cool. I'm a federally registered tribal member myself. I'm interested. And then how intimate are we talking here? Like, do I have to share the peace pipe with everybody or something? Then at 6 p.m., welcoming and land acknowledgement. And then at 6:10, the tribal invocation. And then at 6:20, the national and the Black national anthem. And then at 6:35, local tribal community stories. So Elizabeth Warren's going to get out there and read from the cookbook. And then at 7, Latino community stories. I'm so excited to hear about that one time. It's going to be good. And then at 7:25, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, which is apparently different than Native Hawaiian, even though that's an island in the Pacific, community stories. At 7:50, LGBTQIA plus community stories. Yeah, hear about that time that one guy got AIDS. Oh, that'd be thrilling. And then at 8:25, the Black and African community stories. Are we suggesting that like all Black Americans are secretly African? Because that's really racist and kind of wild. And then at 8:50, closing remarks. And then at 9:05, fireworks. The most military members in this city, the most active duty and veteran. Not one mention of the veterans. Not one mention of the troops. Not a thing. Not a thing. It's not you, and it's not Republicans, it's not independents, and it's not even all Democrats. These individuals, they hate America, and they hate you for existing. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Japan is celebrating America's 250th by lighting up the Tokyo Tower, the Rainbow Bridge, and the Tokyo Aqua Symphony in red, white, and blue, and they're like doing a huge show on it. Because, of course they are. Of course they are. Europeans who are coming over to the United States to celebrate the World Cup are far more patriotic just for seeing how wonderful this country is than some of these ungrateful, second-generation, soul-sucking, non-working, useless, festering pieces of academic debris. It is truly, truly incredible. Now, lest you be truly disappointed, none of this is making anyone as mad as what's going on in New York City. And it's a special one. Truly is. Radio crew, you're joining us back from commercial. Now, you would think all of this stuff might have your blood boiling. It might. Had my blood boiling, to be quite honest with you. This is not what the majority of people in the country are currently mocking and are upset about. Believe it or not, it is still anger and aggravation to a lot of the socialists. But in this case, it's Zohran Mamdani. So over the last 2 weeks, Americans have been making fun of Europe. Why have they been making fun of Europe? And also sharing in the outrage of Europeans? Because Europeans gloated for a long time that Americans' houses are all built out of paper and wood, and all of their houses are made out of stone and cement, and they're going to last forever. And now, they also, of course, made fun of Americans for not having air conditioners. And then it turned out that the Europeans are all getting cooked in their stone houses that are holding in the heat. And Americans' breathable houses just so happen to have air conditioning, and, a lot of us are fine. And because of their climate change priorities, while the deputy mayor of France is blaming the United States air conditioners for warming up the climate, okay, the land of make-believe is here. The Europeans are seriously dying by the hundreds because their governments despise them. Now, one of the things in the United States that's great is that we have the infrastructure to hopefully protect against these kind of situations. Well, that brings us to New York City. So socialist Zohran Mamdani, who promised that the frigid ruggedness of individualism would be replaced with the warmth of collectivism. Well, he's got a plan. Here you go, Zohran Mamdani. It's getting hot. He's got a solution.
It's been a great month to be a fan of New York City, but this week, it's about to get a lot tougher.
Now, to be fair, it has been a month to be a fan of New York City. I was just in New York City, and it sucked. It sucked. The pizza was mediocre. The bagels were awful. Streets were unsafe. It was really dirty. And I felt bad for all of the individuals who had to watch Zohran Mamdani make the Knicks celebration political. Poor people. Anywho.
We're entering what could be the most extreme heat wave this city has seen in over a decade. It can hit 100 degrees, with temperatures feeling as hot as 112 and staying hot into the weekend.
100 degree. How have we ever survived 100-degree weather? There's this weird trend right now, and I don't care if this is unpopular or not. I swear, I'm going to sound really, really old right now, which is going to make my dad crack up because he's here watching the show today. I feel about 1,000 years old because I swear when I was a child, just a little millennial 95er growing up in the early aughts, they did not drop heat advisories like confetti in a parade. Every time it got over 80 degrees, there are 8 heat advisories in your area, and the UV level is a clifflibbity billion. And also, you're going to die if you're outside for more than 3 minutes. I swear this wasn't a thing. And yet here it's 100. We've never seen it go. You guys realize that like thermometers, like your average old side of the garage, side of the filling station thermometers, like the thermometer goes up on the outside stuff to like 110 and 20. Now, does it mean that 100 degrees ain't hot? Does it mean the heat index doesn't get high? Pretending that 100 degrees is like some groundbreaking temperature in July? Oh, no. Anyway.
We're ready, but we want to make sure you are too, especially if you're celebrating the World Cup or the 4th of July or renting out MSG to get married.
That's going to come into play here in a minute because Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are getting married in Madison Square Garden today. Oh my God. Woo! Oh, we're so excited.
Hypothetically, the most important thing you can do in this heat is to stay indoors with air conditioning. This is crucial for kids, older adults, those with respiratory or heart conditions, as well as for your pets.
By the way, that advice, good advice. Nothing wrong with that. Stay indoors, especially if you're elderly or you're a child, you've got pets, head indoors, turn on the AC. That's fine. The problem is that at the end of this, Mamdani announces that you have to, I would really recommend, you turn your air conditioners to 78 degrees. To 78 degrees. And why? Why does New York need to set again, so he was relentlessly mocked for this, because of course the government buildings are not turning down their turning up their air conditioners to 78 degrees. I guarantee you that for Taylor Swift's magical wedding of, woohoo, oh, it's amazing, it's incredible, oh, we love it. I'll guarantee you that Taylor Swift wasn't exactly getting married in 78 degree muggy swamp butt weather today. No. Why all of this all of a sudden? Well, Mamdani came out and he clarified that this all has to do with New York Energy. And this is where things will get a little bit fun. So he says, New York ISO just issued an early warning that we must alleviate the strain on our energy grid statewide. Please do your part in keeping our power on by setting your AC to 78 degrees, turning off the lights and unplugging electronics you're not using, waiting until early morning or late at night to run appliances like dishwashers or laundry machines during a historic heat wave, again, just in a decade. Pretending this is like century style stuff. No, it's not. It will save lives. Wait a minute. We're all going to die if people are turning their AC down? Now, the reason this is funny is that just a couple of years ago, New York City had a power plant, a nuclear power plant, 36 miles away called Indian Point. And it was an incredible place. I had actually gotten to visit there once before. It was a really, really cool thing. And for like a former science teacher and educator, it was really neat. They let you like pick up and like toss around like fake nuclear fuel rods for all the Homer Simpson fans out there. They'd let you like mess with low radioactive stuff and like put old, Geiger and Roentgen counters up and hear the clicks for low stuff. It was really neat. They even had a really cool display on like the old uranium pottery and dishware, Fiesta ware. It was like really radioactive, but it was the only way to get just an incredible orange on your dishware. And it was a really neat place. And the liberals shut it down. Mark Ruffalo, the Incredible Hulk, this guy, he was so excited. This is a big deal. The first of the nuclear reactors is shutting down this month back in 2021. And New York State is moving towards a 100% renewable future. How's that going? I've noticed there's no tweets from you today, Mark. I've noticed that the nuclear power facility is sitting largely dormant, while a lot of other states in the country, even with all of the data centers are running, have power to spare. The air conditioner in my studio is set to a balmy 68. And you know what? Tomorrow, I'm going to set it to 65. the idea that all of your little green, wonderful, magical policies, and it's amazing, first of all, are going to offset China, pumping out all of the pollutants, or India, who is, they don't like to tell you this, but Indian people in the nation of India polluting the Ganges River, 70% of the world's ocean pollution comes from China and then the Indian Ganges River, like from those places. And it's not even close. Like the second place, not even remotely close. Oh, I'm sure that New York City turning their AC up to 78. Oh, you've saved the city. Congratulate, stellar stuff. And this is why, this is the kind of stuff that is why the American people hold a severe amount of disdain for the socialists and the Islamists, etc. That's really it. Believe it or not, the American people, by and large, by the polling data, it's not just me saying this, it's not just the Fox News polls or the Scott Rasmussen polls that are driving in these kind of numbers. Democrat socialists may be winning it big. They may be getting real hot in these primaries, but a lot of these primaries have pretty low turnout, and the general elections are getting really, really rough for a lot of the socialist crew on the Democrat side of the aisle. Case in point, Graham Plattner. Graham Plattner up in Maine, you heard just a couple of weeks ago that this guy, I mean, oh, he's so incredible and he's really kicking it. He's, beating up Susan Collins. He's awesome. I mean, yeah, sure, maybe he's out there praising communist China and stuff. Like, here you go.
I think we are much closer to universal health care than people think we are. We don't have universal health care. We don't have a single payer system. The reason we have it isn't, or we don't have it, isn't because we haven't written good policy or we don't know what to do. It's simply because there has not been the political will or power to make it a reality.
Oh.
And I believe after this November, we're going to see a massive increase in people in the House and the Senate who see a universal single-payer system as the future in healthcare in this country. We're going to see a lot more of them.
So do you want to know what's really cool about New York and California? You can see what all of this crap is going to do to you when these people maintain a majority in Congress. You can see it. You know where I'm not being told right now, and by the way, I've heard the left say, oh, there's official guidances for about 78 degrees in the AC stuff. That is in times where there is extreme power grid strain. And in a lot of states in the country right now, some of them just, so happen to be red states, who's paying attention. A lot of us aren't being given those particular warnings. But again, the reason Americans are upset is that whenever the socialist crew gets up in front of the crowd and promise universal health care, it's going to be amazing, or it's going to be like Canada or the United Kingdom, where they put you on a wait list for 6 to 9 months, and then if the procedure doesn't go well, they encourage you to commit suicide, which is the official state policy of the Canadian health system, whether you're young or old. I mean, gee whiz, I can't see why Americans wouldn't be looking forward to that. Why wouldn't they be thrilled and excited? The polling data is just not holding for them. And again, it's not getting any better. There's nothing here that we're seeing because Republicans are largely being quiet. And you know what? That given some of the things Republicans have been doing, I don't exactly blame them. Not a bad idea. Now, what are the rest of Americans going to do then while all of the lefty socialists are saying they hate America, all the way through the Independence Day for the 250th. We're going to cover that here on the show. Radio crew, we're going to send you over to the commercial break. So do me a favor, if you're driving while you're listening to this, roll up your windows, turn the AC on max AC, and blast some country music. And think of me. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. It's a magical time. It really is. And by the way, when I say that Americans have disdain, part of this comes from the fact that all of the socialists are wildly condescending. Case in point, Bill Nye, the science guy, who has fewer science credentials than I do. He has a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. Yours truly, of course, wasted money on a science education degree, biology and anatomy minors, and then a couple of master's degrees. But Bill Nye, he's here to tell you that power rationing because you cut off nuclear power, that's not only normal, that's good. Here you go.
Mayor Zohran Mamdani taking some heat right now from conservative figures and folks in the media after he posted an advisory online telling people to set their thermostats to 78 degrees. They're calling him a commie in some cases for saying that, even though the U.S. Department of Energy has the same guidance.
When does the U.S. Department of Energy have that guidance? She's not telling you that part.
The science on Mamdani's side here?
Oh, of course. Sorry. Of course, the science is on his side. Everybody, if you don't run the air conditioning systems as strongly, as powerfully, you will use less electricity.
Wow. No kidding. Thanks for telling us that, Charles Barkley. The team that scores more points than the other one wins the game. Did you know that if you don't run your dishwasher tonight, you'll use less electricity than if you had used your dishwasher tonight? More at 11. I mean, man, I don't know how I'm going to compete with that. I better go back to school. That is some top-notch political analysis.
Everybody, that's not rocket surgery. That's intuitive. Just how much can humans tolerate and still be productive? This is the question. And everybody, what I think is happening with these heat events is we're going to get used to them in the same way we used to be used to snow days.
Awesome. So it is the classic Marxist, you will own nothing and like it. So instead of the abundance model and saying we're going to build more efficient, the system that I have here in the studio is far more efficient. It's a heat pump system. They are way more efficient. They use way less power than the HVAC systems of old. Innovation breeds capitalism, free markets. It breeds far, far, far better material. It breeds better industry. Technology makes it more affordable. More people are getting them. There are entire YouTube videos dedicated to you buying a Mr. Cool system and installing it yourself, which I don't necessarily advise, but it's way cheaper. And it's getting cheaper by the year. The idea that, well, actually the solution is you just need to get more used to poverty. Dear sweet goodness grace. That's insane. That's your pitch? You know what you should really get used to doing? Being poor in a third world country. And if you don't like it, we'll simply replace you with a family from the third world who will, steal your tax dollars and then send it back home. That's quite the message. I really can't see why that wouldn't be exceptionally popular with Americans this Independence Day. Beautiful stuff. All right, we are going to bring the radio crew back in just one more time here, and then we're going to cover a little bit of the U.S. stuff on the World Cup side, a little bit of mail time, some extra things we have for you. It's a good one, guys. You're really going to enjoy the rest of the show tonight. We've saved some tricks up our sleeves. All right, radio crew, welcome back, I think. I'm seeing the bar flicker up there. There we go. Radio crew, welcome back from your commercial break. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. We've got a few extra things here before we shuffle y'all out for a beautiful 4th of July weekend. First and foremost, if you didn't catch the United States versus Bosnia match last night, which I told you guys to go watch USA versus Bosnia. Why? I know you may not like soccer, but I told you it's going to get a little feisty. Because as the United States continues to do really well in the World Cup, things are starting to turn against the United States. Not because they're not playing excellently, they absolutely are. I mean, Balogun's just done a phenomenal job. Folarin Balogun, he's been doing some stellar work here. Check this out. This is a beautiful goal in the first part of the U.S.-Bosnia game. And even if you don't like soccer, I hear you, but American dominance should make you proud anytime, anywhere.
Walz will go long. Team Ream, only man there, able to steer it to Adams, flicks it along Tillman. He's got Balogun making a run off him. Can he get around to that ball? To the deflection, Balogun scores! Flo Balogun, first to react to the deflection. He'll do the LeBron celebration. It's 1-0 U.S.
So, two things here. First of all, Balogun's a phenomenal player. Amazing right cross, meaning like to cross, back into the 18. Beautiful work. Number two, to do another American sport celebrity kind of celebration, like to do the LeBron or to do the Trump dance kind of a thing, to stunt on the Bosnians who are getting rather mouthy on social media. Beautiful stuff. Well, FIFA really does not like seeing this. The Europeans, the rest of the world, they're not quite thrilled. And so after, again, going up 1-0, beautiful shot, we get a red card complaint. So first of all, there was this huge complaint about, offside stuff and Americans not knowing the rules of soccer, which is just really stupid. Then we get to the red card moment. For those of you who, again, aren't soccer people, no offense to you, I went to a teeny tiny Christian high school and then a small Christian college, and soccer was kind of all there was, unfortunately. But a yellow card is like a rather fancy warning for you doing something that's rather unsportsmanlike. You broke some of those rules rather flagrantly. A red card is very serious. A red card means you have to go out of the game. Your team then has to play a man down. They don't get to substitute somebody in, like with a yellow card, for example. And then in almost all of the leagues, you're then out for the next game. It's a rough situation. So as the star, again, one of the prime star of the team here, Balogun just dominates up 1-0. Here comes the red card moment.
We're calling for a red card because look, he doesn't even see more.
So right here, he's going up to put his head on the ball as it's coming down. You can see the ball coming down there.
We're calling for a red card because look, he doesn't.
Or to trap it, I guess, not for a head. He's trying to trap the ball to stop it in its place and then move the other direction. He is not looking at this other guy.
For a red card because look, he doesn't even see more.
He clearly accidentally steps on this Bosnian player's ankle. That is not intentional in any way, shape, or form.
He's coming on the outside of him.
And then, of course, because soccer players are all made out of paper, they all fall on the ground and they writhe, and we read J.K. Rowling until they decide to get up and sip a nice, cool cup of chamomile. But he was given a red card for this. He's given a red card for this. And that's really, really, really gross. That's embarrassing. And don't take it from me. Take it from Secretary of State, coach of the Miami Dolphins, acting national security advisor, and future Pope, Marco Rubio.
What about your thoughts on the soccer team?
That was great.
How are they doing?
They got screwed with that red card. I wish there needs to be an appeal process for that. It's probably too late for that.
Yeah, it is. In fact, FIFA made it very clear the United States is just straight up not allowed to appeal. FIFA confirms, according to The Athletic, which is the New York Times pretend sports section, there is no mechanism to appeal a World Cup red card. Oh, man, quelle surprise. I mean, what a surprise. The United States men's national team, Balogun will miss the next round of 16 match versus Belgium after being red carded in tonight's win. Now, here's the fun part. Americans were then down a player, and so Americans did what Americans do, which is, oh, you're going to boo our national anthem? The Bosnian fans in the stands were chanting Palestina in one part of the game. Kind of annoys Americans. They kind of started getting under the skin. So what happens? Down a player, Americans then managed to score yet another goal. Beautiful stuff. Here you go.
Tillman! It's in! Malik Tillman! 2-0 United States!
Tillman with a phenomenal angle in there. Really, really difficult. And by that, I mean, you know, when I was in high school or in college, yeah, you would line up there for those particular kicks. You don't really expect it to go in there. I mean, it has to be the right place at the right time, an incredible amount of skill and an incredible amount of luck to get that in. Beautiful work by Tillman here.
Tillman!
Amazing.
Amazing.
Tillman! Unfortunately, the American announcer sucks, and it was actually the Mexican announcer who did like goal like for a while, and that was pretty great. There's kind of a unique bond between the Mexican team and the American team this year, which never happens. Like the Mexican team and the U.S. team are supposed to hate each other, but this is kind of cool. You say, Tony, I don't like soccer. I don't care about soccer. Why would I give the flip of a wooden nickel about this? I understand that you may not want to care about soccer. What you should care about is stunting on all of the other nations of the world during this, our 250th. While all of the European and Asian and African and Oceanic tourists, Central and South Americans, they're coming into the United States and they're like, wow, this place is freaking incredible. There are air-conditioned stadiums. Take that, Zohran. Look at all this amazing stuff that the United States does. It's awesome. We love it. You also get to stunt on the Eastern Europeans. I will say there was one thing that I was not a fan of. The United States had the opportunity to fly an F-117 bomber over the Bosnian match and chose not to. So shout out to my birth year, 1995. We had an ultimate chance to remind the Eastern Europeans we don't apologize. But you know, missed opportunities as they may be. So again, as the United States does, well, by the way, this really upsets the Democrats. I'm not joking. There are articles in the New York Times and in the Atlantic that are mourning the United States doing well in the World Cup. Like there are Democrat politicians, members of the House and the Senate, that are privately telling their staff they wish that the United States would have done poorly in the World Cup so they could have blamed it on Donald Trump. What? Why? What? And as for all of the rumors that the National Mall is just abandoned and like there's nobody there and nobody cares and everyone hates the United States right now, actually the National Mall was packed last night watching the United States win. So I love this. It's excellent. I'm thrilled to see the United States doing well here again. Even if you don't care about soccer, this is why I think the United States needs a cricket team. Because I like cricket? No, cricket is a very dumb sport. Invented by men who don't know how to hold a baseball bat correctly. Can I get an amen? We should have a team just to dunk on the other teams around the world. That's right. I want to see an American Pai Gow team. What's that? The tile game for the Chinese. Mahjong. Get an American Mahjong team out there. And it's about time we put dodgeball in the World Olympics. Why? Because I want to see American pitchers, wide receivers, and all of the other great stuff out there just throwing rubber balls at other countries and injuring their players. Because this is the greatest country on the face of the earth. I love it. Thrilling. Amazing. Radio crew, have a wonderful 4th of July. We're preempt tomorrow. We're going to continue on the live stream, though, because we have a little bit of something special for the crews here on the Tony Kinnett Cast. You guys take care and have a wonderful 4th. Treason's greetings. And by the way, it is the treason's greetings, you fellow ungrateful colonials, which is why I encourage you to root for Mexico versus England. I know you would think that I would be very much in favor on July the 5th at 8 p.m. of rooting for England over Mexico. But no, I think that what we need to do is make sure that the nearest body of water to the Mexico versus England game, producer Daniel, oh, that's in Mexico City Stadium in Mexico City. Oh, those Englishmen are about to have a rough time. I hope that they dump all of the tea into the Pacific, just as close to Mexico City as they can. It's not really close to any body of water, but you know what I mean. Just for symbolism. Carry Rubbermaid containers with water just to dunk the tea into on your way out. I say that's a great way to go. All right. We have a call from Dr. Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation. Really, really excited. He took a minute. The Heritage Foundation is holding a huge Independence Day celebration at Mount Vernon, the residence of George Washington, our nation's first president. Really, really cool stuff. I wanted to get a bit of a better reflection on what the 4th of July means to Americans and the responsibilities, because, again, if being an American citizen means something, then it's not just a series of privileges that you enjoy. To keep those privileges real and unique, it also comes with responsibilities. So we're going to shift out here really quickly. We're going to reset the network clock. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. More to come tonight. And then in a half an hour, the Sacred Honor documentary premiere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on The Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Going to be joined by Dr. Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation, the very organization whose essence is the history of this country. I mean, their logo is the stinking Liberty Bell, for crying out loud. So when you're going to do a 4th of July 250th celebration, you got to bring on Dr. Roberts. Thanks for giving us a couple of seconds here.
Oh, Tony, my pleasure. What a great week to be alive as an American.
Well, walk us through some of these things, because obviously President Trump honoring the legacy of the great President Teddy Roosevelt. You know how huge of a fan I am of his. I'm hoping that we can see in the next couple of days a true celebration of the majesty of this country. What are some of the things that you're reflecting on after, again, the work the Heritage Foundation has done? Some of the things that are on your mind that are really just at the top of your focus as we turn this 250th chapter?
That's really the question for us, not only this week, Tony, but for the rest of the year. I'm hopeful that Americans will obviously have a great celebration of America's 250 this week, but also continue that celebration, that gratitude for the rest of the year. And that's really the top line point that I would make is gratitude, that let us just at least for the next few days, just to check the politics and the partisanship and even some of the policy work that Heritage does at the door, and really focus on how privileged we are and therefore how grateful we should be to wake up in the greatest experiment in civil society in the history of the world. And saying that, celebrate celebrating that and all of the various ways that we will do that doesn't mean that we're saying it's a perfect society. It wouldn't be by definition because it's a human society, but it is a way of saying we are so blessed, you and I would say, probably most people in your audience, by God, by Providence for what we're doing. And I'm hopeful that maybe with Heritage helping to lead the way on that, as President Trump has done so well, so eloquently, that over the next few days we can get to the end of the weekend and we can say, yes, we have our differences. We have our political differences. Some of us think one way on the left and some of us think some way on the right. But ultimately, we are so privileged to wake up the next day as Americans.
Do you find a certain irony in that it may have taken the Europeans coming over for the World Cup of all things to reinvigorate a sense of national pride in some Americans, not all, and I wouldn't even say most, but in some Americans, there's been a sense of a national pride that's come out of the Euros coming over for the World Cup?
You know, it's just so remarkable. I've been chuckling about this with colleagues at Heritage, with my family and friends, because if you had asked me a month ago, Tony, that it would take Europeans traveling to the United States during the World Cup using social media to rejuvenate American sense of pride in their country, I would have bet you $100 that wasn't going to happen. But, you know, it's just so great. You get these Europeans, you know, whether it's our German friend Freddie or other people who just love the American people. And it's sort of like I am, you know, rednecks from Texas, or people who are in Vermont. These Europeans have just really fallen in love, not only with America as a place, but with someone we know are the heroes in this whole story, and that's the American people. From the political left to the political right, Europeans can appreciate not just the abundance that we have materially, but they also understand this civic spirit that we have, that we love our country. We actually have an affection for one another because we know how privileged we are to wake up and be Americans. It is so great to see, but count me as surprised that it took European soccer fans to remind us of that.
Absolutely. And yes, of course, all ribbing to the Bosnians. Indeed, it is absolutely soccer. So formerly the World Cup, now the Soccer Bowl. Very, very proud to see that. I do want to ask, I'd be remiss if I didn't get at least a serious a question or two kind of looking forward, because thankfulness and gratitude, they're not just rear facing, they're also front facing. That kind of attitude requires you to shift your actions instead of just kind of reflection in thought and private. What do you think the American people need to do in order to express true gratitude, not just through celebration, of course, not just in looking back, but in looking forward at this present political state that we're in, the economic state, the kind of world relations state? What are some of the things that are top of mind that you think that our representatives, maybe in Congress, need to be focusing on in order to express that proper gratitude for the heritage of the American people?
Well, you've asked a policy leader a question that can be taken in the direction of talking about public policy. So I'll give you a couple of examples there, but I'll also give you some examples about what everyday Americans can do and what I'm trying to do just in my normal routine outside of Washington, D.C. But
I would never begrudge you of sharing either of those, to be clear.
Okay. Yeah, well, thanks. You know how much I love your show. And you. In the first case, I think that when members of the House and Senate come back into Washington, that they need to pass the third reconciliation bill, which will be focused on the economy, focused on properly funding the military, focused on eliminating a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. Why is that connected to gratitude? Because we've been given this freedom, this civic freedom, that also has been paired over our 250 years with a material prosperity that no other country can enjoy. And we enjoy the combination of those things. Those things are endangered if the federal government continues to spend far more than it takes in, if it continues to be run by policymakers who don't have the courage to stand up for common sense. And so Heritage is helping to lead the way in getting that done. I'm actually cautiously optimistic that will happen. What can we do as everyday Americans to facilitate that, to encourage that? Look, I think it's really important for Americans to continue doing what we do well, but also to do something that we could probably improve on. What we do well, evidenced by our European friends we were just talking about, is that we are a naturally friendly people to each other, to visitors. It's a very warm culture, this American culture we're celebrating. But the one thing that has become difficult for us, and look, I'll say that sometimes it's difficult for me, is with our neighbors, our family members, our friends with whom we have political differences, to say, I'm still grateful that we're friends. I'm still grateful that we're related. I'm grateful that we're neighbors. We can have our political differences, different signs in our yard. But how about this week and for the rest of the year, we're going to shake hands. We're going to help build a community which doesn't have to be partisan or political. And I think if we do more of that, then ultimately what's going to happen is we will have better institutions like schools, like churches, like workplaces, where, of course, people have their right to believe whatever they want politically. But we at least understand, we take out of this year of America 250 that we are privileged. We are so fortunate, the most blessed people in the history of the world. That ought to be far more important than whatever our political differences may be.
I think that's incredibly apropos and kind of the thing I was expecting to actually get from this call. So, hey, look, like you said on the gamble, maybe I got the Europeans call wrong, but I got this one right. So Dr. Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation, thank you guys very much. I'm a little jealous that I'm here in Indiana as you guys are out at Mount Vernon. Have a wonderful time celebrating the wonderful heritage of our nation's history, and we'll keep the Midwest safe for you in the meantime.
Well, thanks, Tony Kinnett. You're a great American. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, sir. Take care. All right. So before we get to the exciting, the mail time bonanza, I do want to say very clear, one of the things that makes this show possible are, in fact, our two phenomenal sponsors. One of them is the Alliance Defending Freedom. And again, for 250 years, America's been a bastion of freedom. As we look ahead to the next 250, we're reminded that freedom is ours to defend. And the organization that I can say without a doubt, you can tell I'm looking right at you, that's not like a part of actually diving into this sponsor read, but I want to make this clear. When I did investigative column work, when I was in the education sphere, the Alliance Defending Freedom worked on behalf of more teachers, whistleblowers, school counselors that tried to enshrine parental rights. They fought tooth and nail to see decisions like states being allowed to ban transgender biological males from changing in girls' locker rooms and maiming girls like Peyton McNabb in sports around the country. They do phenomenal work, and they do protect those freedoms that we cherish: life, free speech, religious freedom, parental rights. And those freedoms, as you all know, they're at the core of who we are as a nation. We resonate to these things. That's why they have to be preserved. And ADF, the Alliance Defending Freedom, does a phenomenal job of it. And it's one of the reasons that I support them. They're approaching a critical fiscal year-end fundraising deadline. And your support today, like mine, helps support the ADF and helps them defend these freedoms so that they can endure for many years to come. Every dollar that you give right here, right now, will be doubled thanks to a special matching grant while funds last. Visit joinadf.com/Tony, Tony, or text Tony, Tony, to 83848 to give today. That's joinadf.com/Tony, or text Tony to 83848. Huge thanks. We're very grateful that they do all that they do consistently to make this show possible. So that said, right before we get over to the big, the incredible, the phenomenal, the premiere of the Daily Signal's Sacred Honor, Bradley Devlin, Tim Kennedy, Victor Davis Hanson have put a ton of work into this. A lot of our great American statesmen as well, the ones who don't fly Somali flags over buildings. Before we get to that, a special edition just for you of the one and only Mail Time. Mail Time. Mail Time.
On the Tony Kinnett Cast.
So, mail time for us, very, very simple stuff. You head over to our Discord in the description. There's a link in the description of this video. You can join there, very easy stuff. If you don't like the information it asks you, give them fake information. I don't know, maybe that's not legal advice. Maybe that's just something you could do. I don't care. But you head over to the Mail Time channel, and that, unlike the YouTube comment section, which you see flying beautifully by on my left, your right, you know, we can't keep track of all of the wonderful, kind things that you say there, and also the sneers that say I look like a buck-toothed J.D. Vance knockoff goober. So instead, you send them here, and I'll get them right away. We're going to answer some extra spicy ones right here and right now while we get ready for this. So for tonight, before we get over to that very, very interesting, before we get over to the documentary stuff, first question here from Cy Anonymous. He says, Tony, if we handed electing Congress back to state legislatures, don't you think that Republicans would end up in a worse position by the numbers? So as you guys who watch the show know, I am a big advocate of repealing the 17th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which requires states to, remove the practice of state legislatures electing and appointing senators, really appointed more than electing, and allowed for the direct election of senators. And the question being, do I think Republicans would end up in a worse position? No. What I actually think would happen is you would see, even in some blue states, you would see people whose state legislatures are rather red. You would see a lot more intense focus on what your state representative is doing for you. Most people in this country have no idea who their state representative or their state senator is. If you're in a unicameral, state assembly or something like that, it's not any better. And if you were responsible, if there was a Turning Point USA style, and it just happens to be on the bottom of the screen right now, a level of attention on state legislature elections, like there were during the redistricting process that didn't pass in Indiana and got a lot of incumbents kicked out, then you would see better senators. For example, Georgia would not have 2 blue senators right now. Georgia would have 2 Republican senators. And I guarantee you the state legislature individuals that South Georgia is sending to the Capitol, I'm pretty sure, that Augusta is probably going to be sending out some, better individual. So that would be, Atlanta, not Augusta. But anyway, that kind of stuff aside, thoughts on Weird Al refusing to be the poster child for AI. Apparently Weird Al was reached by like an AI software group to do a commercial for them, and he turned it down because he didn't like AI. What's my opinion on this? I understand that a lot of people really don't care for the kind of garbage level quality of AI in a lot of video and audio production. And while a lot of people use AI on kind of the back end, they don't really like seeing it replace certain levels of art. And so because a lot of AI is also predatory in how it trains itself on a lot of individuals without permission, it's because it's very hard to track and kind of figure out. I understand him not wanting to do that. Now, if he made a big, huge deal about it and started being a prima donna in front of the country over it, I would probably not like it. But turning it down and saying, I just don't think I can back it, that doesn't bother me as much. Are there any chances that Congress can follow Brett Kavanaugh's direction and pass a bill limiting citizenship here in the United States? No. So the issue with citizenship here in the United States is not really about the Supreme Court's decision regarding the 14th Amendment this last week. The issue is that in 1967, the Supreme Court ruled on a case in which an individual had left the United States and he was gone for a couple of decades and, just over a decade maybe. And he ended up running in Israel's legislature. Fine, totally fine thing to do. Then he wanted to come back to the United States and resume American activities. And the State Department said, no, you're in another country's legislature. Like you went to Israel, totally fine, normal thing to do. You can go run and be a part of the Knesset if you want, but you don't get to then turn around and want to be an American citizen. And then sued, and then there was a big lawsuit, and then the Supreme Court ruled that any individual, because there were some other lawsuits around this at the time because of the communist stuff, and the Supreme Court ruled that the only way you can take away an American who was born here's citizenship, so not someone who has been naturalized, but someone who was born in the United States, the only way you can take away their citizenship is if they say, I renounce my citizenship, which is really dumb. I suggest in opposite, what really needs to happen is there needs to be a new lawsuit filed with an individual, let's say, who was born here as a baby and then was taken back to China on like day 3 of their life. They were then raised in China, and there was a record somewhere of them pledging allegiance to communist China and the regime. And then they came back to the United States, and there was evidence they have engaged in some kind of foreign espionage. I sound like I'm waffling. I don't know what that would mean. I'm giving you look up the Supreme Court case yourself. The lawsuit would need to be brought before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court needs to rule that if you pledge allegiance to another country, then you forfeit your American citizenship. That would be the answer to that. Just to be honest with you, because I'm never going to give you soft-handed whatever. Congress at this point has been so apathetic for so long that the executive branch is taking much more power than is good for it, and the federal judicial branch is taking much more than is good for it. And that's why the State Department is looking into all of these federal judges who are being trained by open communist groups from China and are then getting into judicial positions. Because Congress, and this is really funny, the reason that America has declined is that, number one, Americans stopped caring about their government. They just stopped caring. We won the Second World War, and through the Cold War and winning it, Americans just stopped caring. Seriously, that's genuinely what happened. After 1991, Americans sat back, popped a beer, and said, all right, good, I don't want to care about politics anymore. And that royally screwed over the country. And so now we're going to have a battle between the State Department and the judicial. That's what Ron Coleman was alleging earlier this week. From Thrival, can you describe how you're sure that the majority of American independents or moderate voters won't go for the DSA or socialist candidates at a larger scale in the country? Yes, I can. Here's the calculus there. The American people, as I just said, don't want to care about politics. All right? They don't like it. They don't care. When you annoy Americans, they do tend to side on the right side of things. This has been the truth for a long time. So there was no way that Donald Trump really should have been able to win in 2024. But Americans were really, really annoyed with Biden. They were really, really annoyed with transing the children. They were really, really annoyed with open borders. And when you rouse the sleeping giant, Americans collectively as an actual group, there is no polling. But according to the waking the sleeping bear, there's a lot more Americans that are politically active than just the angry socialists in the 20s who were able to be made politically active. So when low propensity voters end up turning up, which is normally only during presidential elections, and they're almost never actually polled correctly because normal Americans will just hang up the phone and say, nah, I'm good. There really isn't a lot of support driving it. And so when I say that a lot of Americans don't support the DSA, I mean that if you do show them, the air conditioning example is a phenomenal one. Zohran Mamdani actually limiting Americans by Zohran saying, hey, set your AC to 78 or we're going to have rolling blackouts and people are going to die. And also, I shut down he didn't. His allies shut down that nuclear plant back in 2021. Also, Mamdani celebrated that nuclear plant being shut down back in 2021, according to his social media. Back when he was just a little assemblyman wannabe rap artist in the pocket of his parents' wealth. So the idea behind all of it, essentially, is that Americans, once they're confronted with this, they kind of get pissed and they tend to toss that out. And there is, by the way, a rather funny rant in The Simpsons where Sideshow Bob, I guess, gets like accused of election fraud or whatever as a Republican. And as he's being let out to jail, he says, Americans, you may pretend to be liberal, but at the end of the day, you desire the cold, hard, firm rule of a Republican. You demand lower taxes and a harder rule of law. There is truth to that. There is. That is, in fact, the way they go. And by the way, that's not actually me saying that. That analysis there comes from Nate Silver, the famous pollster who routinely and consistently makes all of the decisions regarding polling that usually end up being pretty accurate these days. Probably the accurate side of things. Next question here from Steve. Says, I think the lurch to the left of the Democrat Party is at least in part due to the baby boom generation hitting the high mortality years and getting replaced by kids that started kindergarten during the Obama administration. It's an interesting perspective. Question, what effect, if any, do you anticipate this demographic trend may have on the direction of the GOP? So the answer to the question is that as people get older, they do get more conservative. Every available poll that is not completely screwed over in the p-values shows this. People get more conservative. Why? Because you see the money leaving and you see the effects of policies. You see neighborhoods change. And also, running around and screwing anything that moves, believe it or not, actually does get old. Chasing hedonism, which is what the left has done, it's not satisfactory. Now, the argument that, well, we have a new surging generation of conservative youth that are going ready to do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to be wonderful and amazing. The jury is still a little bit out, but there is something to be said about the trends of the youth not going out and drinking as much as they used to, not going out and having kids out of wedlock than they used to. We also are in the middle of seeing a pretty large millennial and older Gen Z and younger millennial baby boom. In my general social circle, and I don't just mean among conservatives, everyone's pregnant right now. Everyone is pregnant. Now, I don't know what they're saying in the Rolling Stone, and they're very mad about it, but there are some things that realistically, Deanne McIntosh in the comments says it quite consistently. You grow up. All of these things that you're told are the end of the world, no. And also, you get promised things by the Bernie Sanders of the world. And then you see California and New York, and you're like, wow, this freaking sucks. And the general election, that matters. That's why Susan Collins is actually starting to beat Graham Plattner in the polls. Susan Collins is boring, and she may not be anyone's favorite, but she's a hell of a lot better than the far left. That's just the truth. And the average common sense person, even if in this comment section I have to go, actually, Susan Collins is so bad, I'd rather have anyone but her. They understand that, yeah, the moderate Republican who occasionally sucks is better than the Nazi tattooed guy who may very likely have chatted with minors on Kick up until a couple of weeks ago, and the domestic abuser and all this other horrible stuff. So that kind of thing, you know, that's a big part of it. From Chris Mitten, any chance you could pull some strings and have conservative Canadians put on the TPS list? I hear there is some extra room now. I have thought a little bit about the French and English culturally being added to temporary protected status lists. I think that Congress needs to pass quotas again on cultural standards. Now, the problem is there's some like discrimination on visa things that come into play that are a little interesting. That also needs to be overturned. There's this really bizarre idea in the First Amendment that it means that as long as you call something a religion, that means you're free to do it. Like if I say my religion is beating people with a spaghetti pot, then that means it's okay. No. Just because you declare something as a religion doesn't mean you can just turn around and do a Jonestown. No, that's not a thing. So that's something the United States is going to have to, come to. Now, as to what I think should be the actual mechanism, should the United States push on a CIA level, or what USAID used to be for and was actually founded to do, should it push Alberta to secede from Canada and then make Alberta a non-voting territory like Guam until eventually it becomes rational enough to turn into a state? Yep, absolutely. And then I think that Americans should just push west and then colonize and purge the rest of Western Canada so that we connect our land bridge with Alaska. Tony, that sounds very imperialist of you. Yep, correct. I'm an American imperialist. You darn right. Not in the Nikki Haley and friendly administration way either. There is a really good question. I referenced earlier this week a fun story about USAID. There is new evidence that suggests that at the end of the George Bush administration and the beginning of the Obama administration, that the USAID, State Department presidential slush fund, because that's literally what it was created to be, again, because it was for John F. Kennedy to bribe Honduras from working and Guatemala from working with the Soviets. It's literally meant to be a presidential bribe fund. It just got away from its roots. That apparently USAID in the aughts and in the early teens was running a Twitter account that was trying to foment revolution in Cuba, which, I mean, even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. The very last couple of people at USAID who were actually doing their job, which is fighting communists through subversion. I don't think Americans should be funding regime change. Shut up. Actual regime change is a good thing. Screwing over communist regimes is a good thing. It is. Oh no, Peru got a fascist instead of a communist. Oh, the horror. You can't win them all. But also, while it should be said, I'm never going to be sad if seeing that USAID actually got one thing right, trying to overturn communist Cuba. Wow. Now, it's a shame that they ended up, funding transgender theater in Colombia, and they should have been shut down. I agree with that. But it is nice to see just an inkling, just a small little piece of something, just a thing, a little something there. Just a smidgen of the actual American purpose of USAID coming back to fruition. I do appreciate that kind of stuff. Are there any other, thank you for answering always on my sometimes dumb questions. No, you guys do not really give me, really, really dumb questions here. All right, a few minutes left before we kick you guys over to the excellent premiere for Victor Davis Hanson and Bradley Devlin, Tim Kennedy's beautiful work in the documentary. Seriously. Stick around for this one. It's really that good. Rarely do I just tell you to stick around. Please stick around to watch this documentary. Our show will end and it will automatically kick you over to it. We did that in the settings for you, the American people. Manifest destiny, baby. Absolutely. I hear some of you don't really want Canadians, though. I hear you. I do hear you. But also, I think there is some good to be salvaged out of the former English Commonwealth of the Canadian people. What's my standard for what actually deserves to be a religion? Are you ready for this? The religions that built the world that are mainly the out of Athens and Jerusalem style. By this case, I mean Christianity, by which I mean Catholicism, Orthodoxy, and Christianity, and if we're going to count it, the Church of the Latter-day Saints, which we're not going to get into a fight about that right now. Let's not. My love goes out to you, my Mormon friends. I very, very dearly love you. We're not going to get into that theological debate today. But those are, I would consider, religions. And then also Judaism as well. And then some of the Judaic offshoots based on cultural compatibility. Again, I really care more about your cultural assimilation to the United States, learning the language, adopting the culture, following a trust-based society than an honor culture. There's a lot of differences there. So on those things. On the issue of accountability, this is from Amy 1995, says, how are we going to get accountability on all of these immigration, fraud, and criminal acts? The answer, because I know there's a lot of fraudulent DAs, that's what she also talks about. It really requires at some point federal, state, and Department of Justice intervention. Like investigating a lot of the judicial, which is happening right now with Todd Blanche and Marco Rubio and Mark Wayne Mullen. That's a part of it. Another part is going to have to be that once you commit, you're going to have to do things right. That means not just rushing things. Occasionally, you will have state departments or the Department of Justice, famous for this, Pam Bondi, promising all of the results, over-promising, and then under-delivering. Once you actually get to the, hey, what's going on, what's happening, it's awful. We don't need any of that. We don't need any of that at all. We're getting an argument in the mail time chat as to whether Canadians should be recognized or ignored. I'll leave that one aside. Okay, here's actually, all right, last question of the day, and a weird one and a very, very, very bizarre one. Would I like to see another face added to Mount Rushmore, and who would it be? I would be very tempted to see William McKinley added on. I would be very tempted, even though I don't agree with a lot of some of the policies that he did, I'd be very tempted to see Dwight Eisenhower's face added. I think that his initial work in the Cold War could not be understated. Ronald Reagan, though. Reagan's face should be on Mount Rushmore. That's not even, Ronald Reagan's face. There is a move in the Republican Party right now, a small faction of them, to kind of discredit the Milton Friedman and the Ronald Reagan style of governance. I think that's a grave mistake. I think that's just kind of playing to the youths, and I think it's silly. And also the individuals who are doing that are currently watching their chances of being the next president of the United States flush down the drain. But that all said, we're going to send you out with a bang here. We're not going to have a show tomorrow because I'm giving my staff a very, very well-needed day off. And of course, the 4th is this weekend. Stay safe. Keep all of your fingers. Follow the constitutional laws that are around you. And I really look forward to seeing you guys on Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Now we're going to end this and send you over to, automatically, the Victor Davis Hanson, Bradley Devlin, Tim Kennedy, excellent Daily Signal, Sacred Honor documentary. Join our Discord. I'm going to watch it here with you. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. And God bless these United States.